let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and the culture. It's WallBuilders Live. We're talking about today's hottest topics on policy and faith and the culture. All of it from a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective. How can we equip ourselves to be good biblical citizens in modern America? That's what this program does every day. We're here with David Barton. He's America's premier historian and our founder at WallBuilders. Tim Barton is a national speaker and pastor and president of WallBuilders. And my name is Rick Green. I'm a former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach. You can learn more about us at our website, wallbuilderslive.com, where you can get archives of the program, also a list of stations around the country where we can be heard. And it's a great way for you to share the program. So you can go to the website there, grab those links, send them to your friends and family, send them out on social media. You become a force multiplier when you share those programs. You're helping to educate, equip, inspire people to make a difference, to be the catalyst for a restoration of biblical values, constitutional principles, all the things we desperately need sewn into our culture. You can be a part of it. So check that out today at wallbuilderslive.com, and also consider becoming one of our biblical citizenship coaches. Start hosting a biblical citizenship class in your living room or at your church. There's so many different ways to get involved and make a difference. All right, David, Tim, later in the program, Audrea Decker will be with us. Great article on the pro-life movement right now, the many faces of the pro-life movement, as she puts it. And so this is going to be kind of like a Good News Friday, because we're going to be looking at this entire movement and how much it's growing and how much the next, the younger generations, Gen Z and the millennials, are more and more pro-life for a lot of good reasons. But that's probably why we're getting so many pieces of good pro-life legislation passed in legislatures across the country.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot happen on that, and it is mentality. You don't see legislation passed unless there's substantial support for something. And I recall that I saw an article last year from Planned Parenthood, and they were complaining about the fact that over the past 2 years, 250 different pieces of pro-life legislation have been introduced. Well, they can complain about that, and I hope they keep complaining, and I hope their complaints get louder and worse because more is being introduced. So the fact that you have 250 different pieces of pro-life legislation introduced over a couple of years, that's great. Over the course of this program, we've been on for a number of years. We've had Good News Fridays for, 10, 11, 12 years that this has been a part of the program. And I recall back when we were first talking about how that, look at this, we have a younger generation that is now more pro-life than the older generation. It used to be that if you were over 65, the older you were, the more pro-life you were. But I remember when we reported on the fact that now the younger generation is more pro-life than the older generation, more pro-life than their parents are, in some cases 20 to 25% more pro-life than their parents, that we've seen this shift, and we're seeing it continue. Even just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we had Good News Friday where we talked about that now some 80% of the younger generation opposes abortion on demand up through 9 months. That originally only about 44% wanted to see Roe v. Wade overturned. But then when they were told that Roe v. Wade allows abortion up through all 9 months, right up to the point of birth, 80% of young people said, that's wrong. We don't want that. We don't agree with that. So we're seeing numbers that have been changing steadily now for 15, 20 years. And it's really getting to some of the biggest numbers we've ever seen in the country right now related to young people. And that's really good.
Yeah, and it's something that, as you mentioned, Dad, for the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen the trends going that direction. One of the things that was fascinating to me, looking even at some of our WallBuilders collection, is we have an old, I think it was a Time magazine that back in the 70s, it was even, I think it was early 70s before even Roe versus Wade happened, where they were showing technology of one of these very early kind of sonogram images of showing what a baby looked like, this unborn baby in a mother's womb. And for me, growing up as a millennial, that was nothing I was aware of as far as that there was technology back in the 70s that could show this incredible picture of an unborn child in a mother's womb, because it seems like most of what we've seen in the last couple of decades has been, that's where we've seen science change. And I'm saying this more from my generation. That's where we've seen these images and this technology and things that have really helped shift our perspective. And I'm saying our collectively, millennials' perspective, shift perspective in a much more pro-life way, realizing, no, this is not this is not a piece of tissue like the argument was for so long. Well, it's just tissue. It's not really a baby. You're looking going, no, this is absolutely a baby. It's got a head and a face and eyes and ears and a nose and a mouth, and it's got fingers. And obviously, this is a human being. It's just interesting that some of that technology was around even decades before. It was not promoted until much more recent generations. But at this point, because of the fact that the more recent generations have seen this technology, it certainly is one of the influences that has led so much pro-life perspective to come from this younger generation, recognizing that this is not just a choice. This is a human being we are talking about, and this human being deserves the right to life.
Well, and there's definitely a generational awakening on that. Audrea Decker talks about it in her new article. We've got a link to it on our website today, but she's going to be sharing it with us when we come back from the break. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
This is Tim Barton from WallBuilders with another moment from American history. America is a special and unique nation. The average length for a constitution in other countries is only 17 years, but we've had ours for over 2 centuries. And our 4% of the world's population produces 24% of the world's gross domestic product, and every year we produce more inventions and technology than the other 96% of the world combined. In 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville of France came to America, traveled the country, and in his famous book, Democracy in America, reported, "The position of the Americans is therefore quite exceptional, and it may be believed that no democratic people will ever be placed in a similar one." This is the origin of the phrase American exceptionalism, and affirms that America is unique because of the distinctive ideas on which we have been based, including inalienable rights, individualism, limited government, and the importance of religion and morality. For more information about American exceptionalism, go to wallbuilders.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Thrilled to have Audrea Decker with us. She runs Pro-Family Legislators Network and our Pro-Family Legislators Conference. Has a fantastic article out on the Daily Signal right now. The pro-life generation does not have one face but many. So much good news in this article. Audrea, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, great to be with you, Rick. Thanks.
Well, thanks for all that you do, and you're always great at just keeping us updated on so many different things happening out there. This article, I think people need to go read because it's hard to keep up with it. First of all the pro-life victories, but also just the really the changing face of the pro-life movement. I think we forget that you've actually got a lot of young people leading the charge on this now, and a lot of great constituencies that the politicians need to know. We're becoming a pro-life nation.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's the story that the media often doesn't tell, right? It's not talked about in Hollywood. It's certainly not celebrated there. It's not talked about in the mainstream media. But I think as medical technology has advanced, and my generation in particular, millennials, and then the up-and-coming Generation Z have the ability now through 3D ultrasounds to actually see babies in the womb. And I think that we are seeing a shift nationally of people really embracing the fact that it is a baby, and it shows. Even just a recent poll, Knights of Columbus came out. 77% of Americans oppose or strongly oppose the use of tax dollars for international abortions. I mean, that flies in the face of what we've seen the Biden administration do by rescinding the Mexico City policy. And then, as you mentioned, we're seeing progress in state legislatures across the country where pro-life legislation is being advanced.
I got to get you to repeat that part about 77%, because that number is staggering. So 77, I mean, I didn't think 77% of America agreed on anything. 77% of Americans oppose or strongly oppose the use of tax dollars for international abortions.
Yes, and that includes Americans who identify even as being pro-choice, which just shows the shift, right? They recognize that it is not right to force Americans to fund abortions overseas. I mean, Biden's policies on the issue of abortion are very radical, very extreme, and it's showing in this recent poll.
And that one was an executive order, right? I mean, that was the whole Mexico City policy. Day one, we're going to start paying for abortion around the country again as soon as he was sworn into office.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's been referred to sort of as a political football back and forth between, it was originally a Reagan-Bush policy where they said, we're not going to fund abortions overseas. And of course, it's gone back and forth. Democratic and pro-choice presidents have rescinded the policy. Trump put it in place again to make sure that we weren't funding abortions overseas. And Biden, again, has gone back on it so that we are once again. And Americans are largely 77% not in support of that.
Oh, man, and on so many levels, so wrong. And even just from a financial perspective, why are we sending that kind of money around the world?
Right.
Talk to me about the Gen Z and millennial age groups on the life issue. Are they more or less pro-life than older Americans? Or what are you seeing with that generational gap?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that they are becoming more pro-life, and I think that's the spread of information. I mean, we have access now to information to see images of babies in the womb that generations before us didn't have. So you can't tell us now that it's not a life because we can see it. And I think some of the tremendous work of other pro-life activists like Lila Rose have done so much to expose the Planned Parenthood industry and the abortion industry for what it really is. And I think that the next generation is seeing that, and they're seeing that information, and largely we are more pro-life. I think more of us are choosing pro-life because we're equipped with the information to know that it's a human being and it has a fundamental right to life.
You know, this has been a crazy year in so many ways over the last 12 months. But one of the things I kind of noticed with the whole BLM movement in the summer, a lot of young people want to be part of a righteous cause, and I think they were lied to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously on the racism issue and the Marxism that was used there to pit people against each other. But there were so many young people. I watched them on social media. I talked to a lot of them that jumped on board a lot of that just because they wanted to fight for justice and what they believed was right. Do you see that in the life movement that they're realizing, wait a minute, this one's clear cut? I mean, this one isn't, political interpretations of what happened 60 years ago or 260 years ago.
Right.
I mean, this is happening right now on my watch. Are they making that connection, do you think?
Yeah, I think they absolutely are, especially when you really start looking at the abortion issue more carefully, and you see that it discriminates against, sex-selective abortions. We're seeing more baby girls are aborted than boys. Even in South Dakota, there was Governor Kristi Noem has introduced a great piece of legislation there that would make it illegal to abort a baby based off of if the baby has Down syndrome. Those are kind of the anti-discrimination policies we're seeing as it relates to life. But I agree with you. The next generation, I mean, this is a cause that should really be, it should be nonpartisan. We should be standing for life across the board. And the fact that these policies have been so widely embraced that take innocent life is really unbelievable. But like I said, we're seeing really encouraging trends in states like South Carolina, of course, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, Montana, South Dakota. We're working in about half a dozen, actually probably about a dozen states right now, helping advance pro-life policy, working closely with other national pro-life organizations. And it is encouraging what I think we're going to see come out of this legislative session.
I love it. That is fantastic news, and that also means it's not just one state here or there. It really is happening all over the country. And you also talked about not only your generation being, seeing the life issue as something that they can make a difference in, and you put it this way: you said we're the generation that will speak up for the voiceless, and you tied it into the sex trafficking as well. There's just this desire to stop these injustices and to stop, the violence against innocent people, and I'm just curious where you think that has come from, like that desire for that sense of justice, and that it's a great thing. I love seeing it happen. The church has had less influence on the culture in the last 25 years. So how did that happen? How did we get that sense of justice in your generation, both Gen Z and millennials?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, polling has indicated that millennials, their top priority in life is to make a difference, and so we have seen this massive expansion of community service and wanting to make a difference even in the careers that they choose. And with these critical issues. And I think that is due to the massive expansion of even social media and the way that information is dispersed. And I think there's a lot of course, negatives that we could talk about related to those platforms. But I think one of the positives is that we have had more access to information than the generation did above us. And we've grown up with that information just right at our fingertips. And Generation Z, below millennials, even more so, right? They don't know life without an iPhone and without these social platforms. But I think it has allowed them to have more information right there, whether it's the human trafficking, sex trafficking, and combating that, or the issue of life. And when you're confronted with that, you have to do something with it. I think that you have to do something with it. Not to act is to act, and we can't be silent on these issues when lives are at stake.
So good. Okay, then let's close it out with what can they do? So a lot of the young people that are listening today that are hearing you say this, and as we talk about it, they're going, okay, yeah, I want to do something too. What do you say to them about how to get involved, where to get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are so many incredible pro-life organizations, ways that you can take action and get involved even online. There's networks of these. People can go to myfaithvotes.org. There's a Take Action for Life where there are just a ton of resources to all these pro-life organizations that you can get involved in. I'd also encourage people to be praying. Be praying for the legislation that is working its way through the process right now in all of these states, and be praying for the legislators that are carrying those bills, that they would have favor, that they would have God's wisdom on how to defend them and advocate for them. And then I would say if you have a legislator or know your local legislator, to connect them with WallBuilders Pro-Family Legislative Network. We want to get to know them. We're here to support them. And then we have a great conference November 11th through the 14th in Dallas, Texas, where we invite state legislators to come, and we help equip them not only on the life issue, but on about a dozen policy issues so that they're prepared to stand for pro-family values in their states.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. myfaithvotes.org. That's one of the websites you can go to and get active, get engaged right there. And then very specific action step. Let your state rep or state senator know about the Pro-Family Network and Pro-Family Legislator Network and the conference coming up in the fall as well. And it really is. I mean, I'm telling you, those legislators leave so on fire, realizing they're not alone, realizing there's other legislators around the country also fighting for these principles, exchanging ideas. It's just a great time for them. So both great ways to get involved, and anybody can do that. So wherever you live, whatever your connections are, you can go to the website, profamily.org. You can get the information, and you can send it to your state rep or state senator and encourage them to be a part of it. Audrey, you're doing great work. I'm telling you, it's making a huge, huge difference, and really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate all you're doing as well. Great to talk with you.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with David and Tim Barton. Hey, friends, we got a great program to share with you today. It's the WallBuilders Leadership Training Program, and it's an opportunity for 18 to 25-year-olds to come spend 2 weeks diving into the original documents we're always talking about here on WallBuilders Live. Tim, you've already been doing this a couple of summers and seen the results of young people coming to this program. We're going to see more of them coming this year.
Yeah, Rick, it's something that's been cool to see the transformation with young people coming in. You know, the emphasis for us largely is a pursuit of truth. We have a culture that doesn't know what truth is. We don't know what biblical truth is or constitutional truth or the American heritage that we have. And so we really dive into original documents and say, well, what did they actually write? What do they actually do? Not just what did somebody say, what is actually true? And the truth is what's transformational.
Yeah, guys, this really is a remarkable opportunity. And for those who want to spend time with us and spend time in the original documents, this is a great program. So if you're from 18 to 25 or you know someone who's 18 to 25, send them to sign up for one of our 3 sessions this summer at wallbuilders.com/leadership training.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Back with David and Tim Barton now. Thanks to Audrea Decker for joining us today. And as I mentioned earlier, the article is actually linked on our website. So real easy to get to it. Go to wallbuilderslive.com today. I promise you'll enjoy it. It's good news. And David, Tim, as we talked about at the top of the hour, this is a generational good news item here because not only has this led to some of those victories we talked about, but we'll see more of those victories in the coming years because these are also not only pro-life young people, they're active young people. They're getting really engaged.
Yeah, and I thought Audrea made such a good point that younger generations are looking for a cause to get behind and support. They want to do something that's going to have a lasting impact. They want to make a difference. And certainly that's something that we would argue that God put inside of them. And it's very arguably because God has recognized the gross evil of what has happened with the abortion industry in America. And there have been a lot of Christians praying for a long time that God would help and God would do something. And very, very logically and likely, just looking at what we're seeing, this could be the generation that God sent to help end abortion in America. Certainly looking at some of the judges that have now been put in place that were, even on the U.S. Supreme Court, that were appointed by President Trump, that seem to be pro-life. And there's some possibility in the next couple of years that we'll see some pro-life victories, even at the U.S. Supreme Court. It certainly seems like God is doing something. And let me also just highlight the fact that Audrea Decker is such an amazing teammate to have, a part of the WallBuilders staff and team and what we do. And as she pointed out, there are so many things that are happening with legislative bodies, with legislators in general. And if people have personal contact with their legislator, have them get in touch with Audrea because she can help line them up with things that are going on. We have a conference we do every year. Just incredible stuff. And Audrea is really such a bright person. She's really gifted and talented in a lot of these areas. And we're so happy to have her be part of the team of what God's called us to do here at WallBuilders. But certainly she highlights some of these facts and these details of what legislative bodies are doing, of the next generation wanting to fight and make a difference in some of these cultural battles. It really does give you hope and also perspective that there could be some many more coming victories ahead because of the growing swell of movement of the rising generation.
And I would add, too, that it's interesting to see that with this rising movement of this young generation, they're really more tactically sophisticated. Audrey mentioned Lila Rose, and what Lila Rose has been able to do with technology and with messaging and reaching the younger generation, even older generations, they're so much more sophisticated now in how they can nuance and message things. And so I thought that that's a real significant change in the pro-life movement. It's moved from, older folks with the really simple message of this is wrong to something that's much more compelling now, much more apologetic-oriented, if you will. And apologetics is simply knowing the why. It's not just wrong. Here's why it's wrong. And here's what you can say to appeal to people to show why it's wrong. And I've thought it's really good to see the sophistication of messaging that's occurring, as well as the depth of technology and the ability to interface so many elements together to where that this really is pretty compelling now for young people. I mean, to see such a high percentage of that generation being pro-life, it's not because they were raised and taught to be pro-life, because, again, they're 20 to 30 points more pro-life than the generation that raised them. They're pro-life because they're seeing compelling messaging and compelling evidence and compelling proof, and that makes them even better advocates for life because now they have personally ingested it. It's not how they've been raised, but they have themselves examined and found the truth and found the evidence, and so they're good advocates for it. And I just see so many good things coming. And so as we've even seen in some recent elections, we talked even election 2 years ago, how many young people were elected, how many 25 and under folks were elected to state legislatures, and they went in because they wanted to see abortion ended. And so the motivation with these young people is not only driving them to say this is wrong, it's driving them to action in some very good ways that I don't think that I can recall in previous generations having seen that kind of involvement. So there's just a lot of good stuff happening with Audrey and her generation, with Tim's generation. It's good stuff. Now, there's still other areas where thinking is not yet there where it needs to be. In moral issues, we've talked about where they are in marriage and how many of these young people come from broken families and haven't experienced mothers and fathers, et cetera. But on the life issue, as they've been able to see evidence and see what's there, they are so good on that issue. And that goes back to something, Tim, you were saying a couple of days ago, how important it is for us to find people and mentor people and connect with them and just be friends with them and help provide that example. And that's been done in the pro-life area. We need to do it in other areas as well.
And then also the leadership training program this summer, the opportunity to come in and spend time with you guys, to actually be in the library, to be over at Beck Studios. I mean, all the things that they get during that leadership training program, it gives them all kinds of ideas and avenues and contacts for being able to be a person of action and making a difference. So we really want to encourage people to check that out. And LTP this summer is when, and how can people get signed up?
Yeah, so on the WallBuilders website, you can look for initiatives, and actually it's going to be rebranded the American Journey Experience Summer Institute, because then it sounds professional and academic. But over at Mercury One, they have the American Journey Experience, which is part of what we've been using artifacts and collections to supplement and help tell the story of America better. So it's the American Journey Experience. It's the Summer Institute, which has been traditionally our leadership training program. It's the same program, just has a new name, and it's going to be the first 2 weeks of June. It's going to be the 2 middle weeks of July. But you can find out more about it on the WallBuilders website, wallbuilders.com. Look for initiatives, and then that summer training program will be there.
It's a phenomenal experience. We've had so many young people go through it and just really get inspired about what they want to do with their life and what how God can use them to have a positive impact on the culture. So really do encourage people to check that out today at wallbuilders.com, and also go to patriotacademy.com. If you're in that 16 to 25 range and you want to have the capital experience, patriotacademy.com. And then if you're 18 to 25, then do the new program with WallBuilders. And actually, I encourage you to do both. We have a lot of our Patriot Academy students that actually do both. So check those out and get ready for a great summer. By the way, be sure and visit our website today, wallbuilderslive.com. I really want to encourage you to come alongside us financially. We are a listener-supported program, so when you support us, it allows us to amplify this voice, to get truth out there even more, and we greatly appreciate those donations. There's so many people across the country that do it on a monthly basis. Some people do it one time. Whatever you can do, we really do appreciate it, and it does allow us to engage and equip more people. It allows us to do our leadership training programs for young people, but also for legislators and pastors and all the different things that we do. So it's a great investment in freedom and in a great ministry. We appreciate you doing that. Check it out today at wallbuilderslive.com.
We stand undivided.